Hey everybody, today's date is October 14th, 2024, and I am going to go ahead and dive right into the purpose of this particular live stream. I'm creating quite a bit of content at this point to now reach out and seek the help of the public in any way that feels and seems appropriate. Right now, I just simply want to share what I have about my son and how was he spending his last days leading up to the time he was allegedly found dead on April 4th, 2024, which was just over 6 months ago, going on 6.5 months ago. So this past weekend, I actually went through his cell phone for the first time. I wasn't able to get it back from police for 3 months after my son passed, even though within hours before they even had notified me as next of kin, they had already gotten to media outlets to say, hey, yes, you guys see police activity at Boomer Lake Park in Stillwater. Yes, a body was found, but no foul play. And so from really day one, they had already determined this was basically going to be nothing more than a self-unalivement, and they were not prepared really to look at anything else. And unfortunately, as we've seen many law enforcement officers and those involved in these investigative matters speak out or do articles about how dangerous that is to automatically reach a quick conclusion that someone has self-unalived themselves. And not really look at or even be open to explore the possibility that there could have been foul play and something could have been done to them. It means that in the days that it matters most, they're going to miss all kinds of things. And some people can say that that's a shoddy, shabby, just poor investigation. And sometimes that can be the case. Sometimes it could be a lot more nefarious than that, which is not just, oops, we thought that this was done personally by the deceased and we just missed it. And then there's times when they're actually given information that says, hey, these pieces of evidence exist. Please look into this. Please secure that, as the government officials with the only authority and power in those early days to do it. And so unfortunately, a lot of those dynamics do exist in my son's case. And I'm just going to say, look, I am simply doing what any and every loving parent would expect if their child unexpectedly, 2 weeks after a family vacation, everything's going well, all of a sudden turns up found dead, right? We'd want answers. We're getting ready to go into an election season. And for those that I'll say are more on the religious side of things, that think that another way you can accept death is forgiveness, grace, mercy, let God heal you, focus on your healing, don't focus on anyone else. What I can also say is we're getting ready to go into an election in about 2 weeks. And a lot of those same people with those beliefs that, yes, we can process grief and pain in healthier ways than others are also going to be going to the polls and voting, because there's this big border issue and there's this big issue of high crime and violence and murder and all this stuff that we don't want coming across the border and impacting our family members, right? So yes, let's keep going to church on Sunday. Let's believe in forgiveness and grace and mercy. But let's also not forget that we serve a God of truth and justice, who, by the way, hates murder and the shedding of innocent blood, right? Who hates all of these things that would seek to cut short the life that we also say we are pro-life about, and then to lie about it, right? Let's just, for a moment, agree from the beginning that if this was your son, if this was your close loved one, you would want the answers that I'm looking for now, that I've patiently given authorities 6 months to decide to figure out, or to continue to take the stance that we won't be figuring anything out. Case closed. We made our determination literally within 36 hours, and we're just simply waiting an ME report. and not even an autopsy, in a state that says if it's an unattended death due to suspected homicide, the other side, or accident, we do an autopsy. And unfortunately, one of the things I'm going to share is how I also, because unfortunately I've had to learn raising, let's see, 4 boys that look as they do. I've had to learn over the past 20 years that unfortunately, when it pertains to them or just me, even worse as a Black woman, unfortunately, governmental power doesn't really actually work the same for everyone. And while there are phenomenal law enforcement officers and members of the system out there, many of which, as I've gone through years of injustice and non-truths and lies and full-blown, I'm just going to say it, abuses of power and corruption, right? There are many in the same positions of power that are actually responsible for the reason that I'm still living and breathing right now. So you're not going to find me being extreme, defunding the police, or any of these other extreme, like mentalities that say you either are for police and law and order or you're completely against them. That's not going to be my experience. I've experienced both. But because I have experienced enough over a prolonged period of time where it is literally natural and the norm that I'm going to get lies from, unfortunately, my public servants. One of the other things that I'm going to share is that I've just learned I need to be recording, right? At this point in time, those of you that have never heard the term one party state, go ahead and Google it. It is your legal right in states like Oklahoma and Texas to record conversations with or without people's knowledge, right? To just simply do what most people, bill collectors, anyone you talk to over the phone, and say, for quality assurance, this call is being recorded, right? If you encounter law enforcement, what are they typically wearing? Body cams. They don't ask for your permission, and they shouldn't have to. I think body cams are a great idea because it protects the citizens, also protects law enforcement, right? If we have video running in real time on what is occurring, what is not occurring, it's hard for people to get creative in the stories that they tell about what happened. And so from day one, when law enforcement hit my door, I was recording. When we called Stillwater PD, I was recording. When we talked to the Oklahoma City Medical Examiner's Office, I was recording. And yes, unfortunately, because of the way that I was reached out to that was abnormal from how we would communicate for 2.5 years prior to when I finally did get the 2 conversations with my son's former significant other, yes, I was recording, as well as when the mother called me and said I'd be getting my son's stuff no time soon. So all of that said, nothing that I'm going to be sharing or alleging is going to be what I remember, what I recall. When you're going through the highest stress points and times of your life, I think most people would agree you're not remembering every detail of everything that everyone's saying. And so what I would say to those that are going through this, I have been shocked. I have been just deeply saddened, further aggrieved to find out just how many families are going through this, particularly, yes, with Black male sons, cousins, brothers, spouses being unalived in mysterious, suspicious circumstances where there's a rush to no foul play. And so, what I want to say is if you're actually watching this and you're still just trying to get to truth, I would recommend Google right now to find out if your loved one passed in a one-party state. If they did, that means you should be recording every conversation with everyone immediately, right? For your protection and theirs, right? Another reason for your protection is Nobody can ever say that you threatened anybody or that you said anything, in an emotional state that you shouldn't have said. Like, just resolve all of that for quality assurance. Record. Okay. All right. So I did get my son's cell phone back eventually. And like I said, just this weekend, I went over it. I'm going to try to show the screen. And I apologize, y'all. I have no YouTube skills here. And I don't even know how I'm going to be able to do this. I may not be able to do this because there's so much light. There we go. All right. So if you guys can look at that date and time stamp and even the number there, it says, as of April 2nd, 7:34 p.m., great news, Joshua, your federal tax return was accepted by the IRS. And then it says your Oklahoma tax return was accepted on April 3rd at 10:24 p.m. Y'all, he was allegedly found between 9:15 and 9:31 a.m. on April 4th. So you're talking about not even 12 hours later, he's allegedly found dead, but yet he filed his taxes. Now, I have not even gone through his wallet yet because I have not been eager to take any of my son's funds. I know there are some dynamics where immediately his house key, his mail key, and when I say his house key, his apartment key to the apartment that him and his significant other lived in from day one together. I found out, unfortunately, when I thought that it would be a natural progression that, yes, we can go get my son's stuff. I found out that, unfortunately, his girlfriend told me that for some reason, her name was the only name on the apartment. Even though they were viewing it together, I was holding stuff in a closet full of things she was ordering for their new place because they lived close to me initially. Well, he lived close to me initially. She lived with her parents until they moved out together. So this was her first apartment, not living with her parents upon information and belief. It was not for my son. He had managed that just fine for over a year. And, he did have a situation, I believe in 2018 or 2019, where he had roommates. And unfortunately, his roommates didn't pay. And so they were evicted. I'm assuming that this is the reason why, perhaps, as they were living at a nice complex in Stillwater, that maybe the decision was made to keep him off the lease and the application process so they could get in, but didn't have any criminal background. So that definitely wasn't a reason that he was hiding out. He did have the address disclosed on his Oklahoma driver's license. And so not only was on his driver's license, but also his insurance for a car that was also turned over with those keys from his dead body as soon as he passed. Now, many of you know that there's huge issues with that. You don't start divvying out property to anybody when property is found on a dead body. And yes, even if the belief is like the apartment, that she even did a video as soon as they moved in saying, we both saved for 2 years to get our place together, which they did, right? And for whatever reason, again, it was all left in her name. I have now also found in the phone pictures where the insurance was primarily in his name as the primary insured. I saw in his phone also pictures where he had like budgets and it said car payment because he was buying her old car from her. And then furthermore, there was even a text message about why an insurance payment for his car came out of their joint account for rent and household expenses where they both paid for that apartment, where keys were just turned over off my son's dead body without probate, right, to a non-family member girlfriend. And so, it's just very disturbing. People think, okay, if someone passed and they did not unalive themselves, and there was foul play, what would the motive be? I am not saying that his significant other unalived him. I'm not saying that her family, meaning her parents or any members of her family, unalived him or were responsible for it. I will say that, yes, Her father is retired Oklahoma State law enforcement. It doesn't mean that there's automatically anything nefarious, but what I will say is that there was a lot of deference given to non-related, non-family members, and now we're talking about the law, dealing with an unmarried individual that was known at the time. They had his ID at the time. They were able to reach out to her pretty quickly because they said they looked up the utilities, her name was on it, and then I guess because her name was on it, they also then mentioned that they were able to go immediately to her school, which that's kind of interesting as I think about that now. I'm not going to get too far off into the ditch. There's a lot of information. I want to stay focused. But my point is, when we start looking at potential motives, right, and who could have possibly heard some frustration that she shared with me, which was, he loved me so much. He was trying so hard. He was such a good person. I can't believe I allowed stupid things like money to get in the way and cause something like this. The account that I was told by the girlfriend before speaking to police and medical examiners is that they had a tough or difficult conversation the night before he was found, where she said that she was wanting to break up with him over money. At the time, he was working for the local school district. He was doing Amazon Flex delivery. He was doing DoorDash. I got to check again. I want to say maybe it might have been Uber Eats. I have to check. It was another delivery. And then he was also working at the stadium people, which they're in the college town of Stillwater, Oklahoma. Means he was doing events. So he had 5 different income sources he was working, but apparently that still wasn't enough. And so with that said, what I will say, just factually, what occurred after he passed was she, in her own words, told me it was over money. And with him dead and no longer breathing, immediately Stillwater PD effectuated the transfer of his apartment, mail, and car keys immediately to the non-married girlfriend. And again, I had to wait 3 months to be able to get his cell phone, his wallet, his vape on his body. There were also statements made by the detective and by the Oklahoma City ME that as soon as his body was turned over to our funeral home of choice, that those items would be released. Instead, the only thing we got as the single inventory item was one watch that was actually never even mentioned in the phone conversations that took place with the police detective and the Oklahoma City ME the very next day. And so, yes, I do find it odd that if we have very specific conversations about what's on his body, 3 items, his cell phone, his wallet, his vape, his keys, right? They did say that the police had his cell phone, but the other 3 items we didn't get those 3 items. We got a watch that wasn't mentioned as a 5th item. And then immediately, again, keys and really essentially an entire vehicle and apartment were immediately non-probate turned over to an ex-girlfriend 12 hours after he passed. Yes, he had a death benefit through the school district. And I'll just say to people, make sure your 18 plus year olds get their will done. Make sure if they're working and they have any kind of benefits that would assist in laying them to rest and addressing final expenses, make sure that they take the time to list beneficiaries and outline how they want that to occur. Because I'm not going to get much into this, but I'll just say that if that is not in order, as it is for anyone of any age, right? There can be delays and complications. And I'll say 6 months later, because of that and other dynamics, my son still hasn't been laid to rest, y'all. This has been beyond painful. Not only has he not been laid to rest, he hasn't had an autopsy. Again, that is something that the state of Oklahoma says that we should have done. And as I'm going to also unfortunately have to release some of those painful audios, you will hear the lieutenant saying around 5 o'clock the evening that he was allegedly found dead, that his body was being taken to Oklahoma City Medical Examiner's Office for an autopsy. And then for some reason, they didn't do one. So I have more questions than answers, but that was one of the things that was going on at the time. Let's see. Another thing that was happening, April 3rd at 4:31 p.m., it says, "Hi, it's glassesusa.com. We've started production on your glasses." I saw glasses, y'all. If he walked himself out to the middle of Boomer Lake Park in the middle of the night without his glasses and put himself in a tree, I struggle with that. But again, if you can see the date, timestamp, make sure you can see it. April 3rd, 4:31 p.m. Again, y'all, we're talking less than 24 hours. He had ordered glasses. I don't know why people that are getting ready to take their lives need to see. Another thing, there are a lot of more things that I could share. I'm being very selective to not share everything. There was something else, though, that I did want to share because there was a dental appointment that was coming up. Let's see if I can find it. Well, I don't know if this is really as relevant, but it could be. March 28th, so this would have been, I guess, about 4 to 7 days within the week before. He made a $115 payment on his cell phone. Sorry, there's that. March 28th, 9:24 p.m. I'm sorry, 9:42 a.m. I am not really sure what this is about. And again, I literally just went through his phone going into Sunday morning, falling asleep at 4 a.m. after doing this. But this was Wednesday, again, April 3rd at 12:29 p.m. So this would have been the day before he was allegedly found dead. And he says, "I'd like to reschedule my appointment for April 9th at 2 p.m. This is digestive disease specialist, I believe. It says BMC and Yukon." So here we go. Trying to get a good look here. If y'all can see the date, April 3rd at 12:29 p.m. How can we help you? I'd like to reschedule my appointment for April 9th at 2 p.m. Again, it looks like he had reached out on April 3rd, midday. And again, he was in the tree the next morning. It just seems like he was doing way too much for someone who was getting ready to check out. So again, just to show all the, I was trying to just show these together and not show any other messages. I can. Well, Spark Driver app, that was another thing. So I'll go ahead and share all of them so you can see them together. Spark Drivers through Walmart, that was April 4th. April 4th, he's saying, "Hey, there's another position." This is with his stadium work that he was doing. Oklahoma return was accepted. We just started processing your order. You've got a new digestive disease appointment. This is not the behavior and lifestyle. All of this, the second, the third, the fourth of someone that's going anywhere. In my opinion, I'm sorry, it's just not. Well, go ahead while I'm in the phone. I want to go ahead and share this. I was concerned that maybe there would be a phone number, and I didn't want to disclose her phone number, but these are the last messages in the phone with his significant other. Starts Tuesday, April 2nd at 11:47 a.m. And he says, "How's your day going?" She says, "It's been good. How about you?" And it doesn't look like he's got a response in there. Then it says that at 1:07 p.m. she responded again, "Hey, sorry about the last minute change, but Marissa's going to go with me to that dinner tonight, actually." And he says, "It's going just at the plasma donation place." "Oh, I gotcha. Is it just a 2-person thing?" And she says, "Oh, nice. And yeah, I just have 2 tickets for it." He says, "Okay, what time is it over?" She says it ends at 7:30, but we probably won't stay the whole time. This is before Wednesday, April 3rd at 9:39 p.m., where she's saying, "Please come back upstairs." And then she says, "I'm going to sleep. Please come back upstairs." And then Thursday, April 4th at 6:08 a.m., she says, "Where are you? I really hope you're okay. Please just let me know that." And she says, "You're actually scaring me. Please at least respond." And then she says, "If I don't hear from you by 12, I'm going to message your mom." Which again would have been the normal response with her, because it was not abnormal for her to call me or message me, or for me to call or message her. We were connected on social media. They've been dating for 2.5 years. So when I do go over how I was allegedly notified by her Facebook account, and I'm saying her Facebook account because I'm not convinced that that was her, based on the way that she normally messaged and that I messaged, where basically I'd noticed 2 days before he allegedly was found dead, her Facebook account was watching my every story. Again, they had been dating for 2.5 years. She had never watched my stories before. I actually thought the reason was because of a conversation that we'd had about them and their relationship when we went on the Florida family spring break trip with a younger brother here. Of course, he's 20 now, but the conversation we had was basically him realizing, yes, he loves her, but she's very much focused on money as a priority. And that's keeping him constantly working, right? Not being able to spend as much time as he wanted with family. When I found out my son and his friend were wanting to go to spring break in Florida, in the Destin area, unsupervised, I didn't feel like that was the safest idea and plan. And so I reached out to his brothers, older brothers, to say, "Hey, can one of y'all be available to take me, go with me to take my youngest son and his friend to Florida?" And Josh, surprisingly, was the one that said yes. I actually had invited him and his girlfriend, and we would spend holidays together, Mother's Day, birthdays, and when they were closer to where I live, for like 2.5 years when they first started dating, she would stay here sometimes. And, it just was, again, a normal thing for her to be able to be around our family. Now, definitely there was much more time that they spent with hers, but again, it would not have been uncomfortable for me or her brother, I'm sorry, of Joshua's brother, or hopefully I thought for her to go on the family trip with us. This was quite normal. We've got pictures, videos, time spent with them, just like, with her family. And so ultimately, she wanted him to stay and work, and he wanted to take a break and have some family time. And so, with that, I did know that that was something that he had mentioned. And I just said, look, if you love her, you're going to kind of have to just accept that you guys are going to be a little bit different in that regard, because your priorities, your morals, your values are very different. Again, that's not shaming anyone, saying anybody is worse than the other. It just means that what people prioritize in terms of time with both families, or money making, savings, other different things, it's not always aligned. And when those priorities, don't align in a relationship, they can definitely create issues. And so what she told me was she broke up with him over money. And so anyways, I'm going to go ahead and just show the proof here of what I just read. That there was also something where I guess he was going to be going to dinner, and she said a girlfriend was going instead. Oh, there we go. Let's see. This would have been April 3rd at 9:39 p.m. Again, if he was found at between 9:15 and 9:30, we're talking exactly 12 hours before, which is what I was told. It says it ends at 7:30. And then let me go to the other one. Again, these are messages. I'm trying to show the date and time stamp here. There it is. I think you can see it, April 2nd, 11:47 a.m. Okay. Because he was at a place and point where he knew he wanted to be able to start spending more time with our family as well, not just hers and her friends and what she wanted to do. There was another thing that was going on, that his last messages with me were waiting to see his baby sister. Now, that's another story of great injustice facilitated by the system I'm not getting into in this live at this time. There are ways that y'all can read about that and learn more about that. I definitely haven't been silent or quiet about it, but he could not wait to see his baby sister. Here we go. So this is March 31st at 10:54 a.m. He's saying, when is the next visitation? I said next weekend, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. And the one is planned to be a party. He says, okay, sounds great. I'm sorry about today. Can you have Jerry FaceTime me so I can see Mariah? Now, this was March 31st at 10:54 a.m. We were supposed to be getting her at 12 noon. And so again, this is literally 4 days, 31st, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th. Yeah, 4 days before he was allegedly found. That was his last text to me, is wanting to see his baby sister. I'm going to go back to basically, these are some videos from the trip, Florida, that he had. I'm trying to go back to the day that basically I told him she was coming home. Oh, let's see here. We have a lot of messages. Let's see here. Let me see. Sorry for the delays. I don't know why. We did have a text message about the fact that my daughter and his baby sister were coming home. And that would have been March 25th. I don't know why that is missing out of his phone. So that's concerning to me, because I actually text him that Mariah's coming home, and he immediately says he's going to be there. And then he says he can't be there. But I just realized that those texts are missing out of his phone. Okay. One of the needs, because I need to be specific about needs that I have, is there are ways to black box phones. Literally by the time that anyone sees this phone will be out of my possession and not available for retrieval, I'll just say. Because I'm now seeing that there's deleted text in this phone. Because he wouldn't have deleted that. There's no reason he would have deleted that. So, when families are not getting true police investigative work that, yes, taxpayers pay for them to do when someone dies, so it's not a waste. If we value everyone's life and all life matters, these are one of the things that we need additional funds for. Getting a phone black boxed where there are forensic specialists that can do that, and they can recover any and everything that has ever been deleted off a device. Okay. I've been given a referral for a service that does this. I believe it started anywhere from $450 to $800 per device. And so that is something I definitely recognize I need to have done immediately, because I can attest personally, as the person that was on the other side of a conversation that is now out of the phone, that was a text conversation that happened. The only other way, no, we didn't even really message enough on Facebook or Instagram for it to go there. Yeah, it was definitely through the phone. So anyways, I think for what I was looking to express in terms of leading right up to the days before he passed, I think I've shown enough to know my son wasn't going anywhere. He wasn't sending off that vibe at all. And he actually has a history of overcoming and not getting to a place and point where anything would stress him that much. April 19th was the last time I saw him early morning when we came back from our Florida trip. I told him, babe, if anything ever goes wrong, you can always come home, right? And well, yes, he's a 25-year-old young man, and if you've already been out of the home, you don't want to move back in. And then unfortunately, with the other injustice dynamics that our family has suffered for years, it's another reason that no, he wouldn't want to stick around, or his brothers, quite frankly. And like I said, I'm not getting into all those details right now at this time because we'll get off in a ditch and away from the point. We'll just focus on Joshua James. But my son wasn't going anywhere, y'all. Not even in the slightest. And again, I've shown you all the reasons that, again, there's not even any signs of distress arising to the level of he's checking out and planning and winding up affairs of just letting things slide. It looks like he was fighting to live. Looks like he was fighting to stay in alignment with work and filing taxes and getting glasses so he could see, which is, again, another dynamic that obviously he needed those and didn't walk himself into the middle of the night and put himself in a tree or standing up on a tree or suspended in a tree. In the next part, we'll get to that conversation and how I was given 3 different accounts by the lieutenant upon notification by phone, by the detective. She actually gave multiple different accounts on multiple different occasions, and then the Emmy report. All 3 that don't actually mimic or show consistency with each other. And I did just also get the police report that said that there were 8 sets of eyes on my son at the scene. And that's another expense. They're like, yep, we do see where when we denied releasing any record of suicide, saying that our police department just doesn't release those records, right? And I responded with the Oklahoma law that says, yeah, you kind of do, right? Because by law, as a public government agency that is paid and funded by taxpayer dollars, there must be transparency and accountability. And you do need to release records pertaining to when you came in contact with and encountered and hauled off, bagged and tagged dead bodies. Yes, you have to give some kinds of records. And when they initially tried to say, when I requested here in the last couple of weeks to get those records, that they wouldn't, and I responded just literally with copy and paste law that I wanted body and dash cam because that was specifically mentioned. They did say, yep, that is a specific thing we have to show. However, we get the right to redact anything that would show pictures of dead bodies. I get it. And so because of that, we are going to have to do redaction work that is probably going to take about $350, 12 hours worth of work. And you need to send us a deposit of $180. And so that's another thing that unfortunately y'all know. I did not have a savings account and fund for when any one of my children precedes me in death, right? This was not something that was supposed to occur. This is not something I was prepared for. And it's not something that I have extra money for now, as I do still have a 10-year-old daughter, as I still have a 20-year-old son, as I still have a normal life just like any of you. And if you all of a sudden had all of these ancillary expenses of needing to black box a phone and needing to pay $350 to get transparency from a public agency surrounding your loved one's death, like, you don't just have that money sitting there. And so those are 2 needs right now for minimum $450 to $800 and $350 just to get the details of what all was in the phone, if there was anything else, and to also get that report. I did get an initial report that does say a call came in saying that there was someone hanging in a tree. And so from that standpoint, again, when I go over the next part, which the detective is saying his feet were always on the ground, he was never hanging, you'll understand why I'm really perplexed. And ultimately, I just need the truth. And if appropriate, justice for Joshua James. This has been one of, I don't know how many recordings, but getting it going, getting it done. Please help in any way that you can. I will drop some things in the chat and description on how you can further help or if you've got some additional facts, details, insight, things that you think that would be helpful for me to know, please let me know that as well. Thanks for watching, and we'll follow back up with the next video. Thanks. Have a good night. Bye.